Hi everyone, welcome to Pop Rock Food Talks.
Eric, before we start, please, you have to tell me, where did you get this hat?
My hat.
It looks amazing.
That is a very natural question.
Yes. I've been wondering this entire time. The entire time while Xander's been setting up the mics, I've been looking at you in wonder, asking myself, where can I get a hat like that?
Well, I got it on my recent trip to Japan, and so the second day I arrived at Japan, we went to Shimokitazawa. Have you been there?
No.
So it's this like neighborhood, like a super nice neighborhood. You should go. And there are a lot of like vintage stores. Also, the neighborhood is pretty nice in itself. So we went there for a walk and to visit my friend Barry, who lives there. He cooked lunch for us, like an amazing. I would define Barry like a semi-professional home cook. You know, he has like a sous vide device. He has like this super pro Japanese cast iron pot rice cooker.
Oh, nice.
It was like a tuna wrapped in kombu and sake, you know, like super nice. If it was lunch, I would define it as a Japanese breakfast with boiled rice and poached eggs and the sashimi and all this sort of stuff. Anyways, after lunch, we went walking around in the neighborhood, and he brought us to this vintage store where I saw this cap. And I saw it, and it was like, oh, this looks pretty cool, you know. Like, so I scanned the letter, the kanji that has, and Google translated as soup. So it's a soup, and I was like, man, so cool.
That's amazing, yeah.
Yeah. For good or bad, when I'm traveling, I avoid consumerism like overly, you know, especially in Japan. I mean, I had to buy an extra luggage, which is what a lot of people have to do when they go to Japan for the first time.
Yeah.
In my case, it's because I broke the small one, so I had to buy a new one. So I bought like a huge one, and even so, I had overweight, you know, like because it's so. I mean, buying, for example, ceramics in Kyoto, that shit is like crack cocaine, man. You never have enough of it.
Yeah.
Tokyo was my departure point, and I would also leave Japan from Tokyo. So I traveled around and went back to Tokyo when I was for the second time in Tokyo. So I had just like 2 days left. I was like, the cap, the soup cap. I have to go back to that vintage store. So I went back there. I was determined to buy it, you know, because it was not cheap, also not expensive, like 40 euros, you know, like, and I was like, okay, let's get it. It doesn't matter. So I go back, I scan it again with Google Translate, and it says hot water. And I'm like,
Oh.
no, and also like, this is not as cool as soup, but I'll love it anyway, you know? Because, you know, kanjis are not letters as we understand them. They're not like pieces of sounds that you build together. They're like concepts, right? So hot water and soup is kind of
Same
like
concept, yeah.
exactly. So I was like, okay, let's take it. So I go to the counter, and the two ladies there, they were like, you know, like Japanese laughs. And I was like, okay, well, what does it say? And they said, what, I don't know, like, and so I take my Google Translate so I could record them and translate, and I look at it, and it said public bath. And I was like, you know, same concept, hot water, you know. It was this, I'll take it.
Referring to a public bath as a soup is really cursed. That's a really cursed idea.
Yeah, and that's the story of it. Then I saw that there are like some YouTube channels where they show people that have ridiculous stuff written in kanjis, and they don't know, like tattoos or T-shirts or stuff like that. Yeah, and that's all about it.
That's nice. I'd rock a hat saying either one of those, soup or public bath. I'd be fine with that, honestly. So here we are. What's happening?
Well, I wanted to prove you that everything you eat in San Sebastián is at least good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's wrong. Like,
okay.
Like, it's not. It depends how you define good, right? I'm sure there's places where it's easier to eat something that's really inedible, but there are like a fair few places that I've been to get like a pincho, and it's like it's edible, but it's not great. You know, like it's really not great.
No, I didn't say great. I said at least good. you know,
At least okay.
meaning good as not bad, you know, like, or a little bit more than not bad, you know. I mean, as opposed, for example, in Barcelona, I've always said that Barcelona can be the city where you have like the best restaurants maybe in the world or in Spain, Madrid, San Sebastián, Barcelona. But the difference is that in Barcelona, you also find the worst places in the world. You know, like you can get like crappy tourist traps with unedible junk for a lot of money and easy, like super easy. Walk into a random place in El Raval, sorry, not El Raval, in Las Ramblas, and you'll find that, you know. Walk to a random place in San Sebastian, city center, Old Town, or Gros, and you'll have at least good, or it could be super good, excellent, and mind blowing. So you could find that, you know.
Okay, fair enough. Alexander was telling me yesterday about this thing that I think you guys spoke about, that apparently Basque people think that this whole hype about Basque food is like a sort of political thing that's not actually that good.
I mean, of course, that's not like general view, but I've known people, I've talked to people like friends that are in some cases not even from San Sebastian, from villages around, and because they know that I work at Basque Culinary Center and I have this whole background with food and everything. They ask me like, this whole thing about San Sebastian being a food capital, is that true? Like, is Arzak really someone worldwide? And I'm like, yes, he is. You know,
Yes,
like,
100% here.
yeah, he's like a legend, like a living legend. You know, it's not that like some hype that was built around him for locals. That's what they're asking me. You know, like, and I say, oh yeah. Like I went to Chef Sachen Düsseldorf, this chef conference in Düsseldorf in Germany. Elena was speaking, and they showed a picture of the old man of Juan Mari Arzak, and there was a like a 2 minute standing ovation, you know, for just showing a picture of the man in Germany. So that really proves that he is a legend. But going back to this topic, for example, there's this new building from Basque Culinary Center that is being built, and there's a lot of opposition from the neighbors. But that's also something very common if you go back in the history of this city.
Grumpiness and opposition.
Yeah, for example, I don't know if you know, but the whole beach of Gros, Surriola Beach, that's an artificial beach.
Yeah.
Like if you see pictures from the mid 90s, there was like a wall in the middle of the beach, and there was no beach as we understand it today. There was no Cursal, there was no, like many of these things were built just in the late 90s. And now you have that beautiful beach where everybody walks around and everybody enjoys it. There was a lot of opposition to that building. A lot of people didn't want it to be built, thought it was a mistake, and so on. So with this new building, they're saying like, oh, this is like how much to gastronomy? We've had enough of it. Where are our dogs going to pee now? You know, like, I'm serious. That's
crazy.
Or so they had to cut like 2 trees to make the building, and it was like, what's going to happen with our biodiversity?
Of course.
You know, like,
There's so little biodiversity in the Basque
and
country, you know.
and I mean, and I of course I respect everybody, especially people that especially locals that grew up here and they have their own vision. I know very few people outside of Basque Culinary Center that are enthusiastic about it. Now that is still a project. In any case, what I want to prove is that there's this whole thing about it has been enough with this food thing, you know, like I've seen. Yet at the same time, also that like people not seeing the value of it, like because they take it for granted. You know, like good food is taken for granted around here because of that reason. Because it's good. Because you've always known, if you grow up here, you know you've known good food as a standard. You know, like so something a little less than good is crap. It's unedible crap. So the standards are very high here around food. Yet at the same time, I think that there's a generational shift problem. Young Basque, it's not as it was in the 90s or the 2000s, where there was a large amount of young people becoming hospitality and gastronomy professionals. Now that's not the case anymore. So what happens? That slot is being taken by foreigners, mostly Latin Americans. So you get to see here most or a lot of traditional Basque restaurants are run by Latin Americans who preserve the tradition. Of course, they're cooking the traditional style. But yeah, it's a quite common thing. But also, interestingly enough, in many places, well, not in many places, you will see a lot of traffic of Japanese travelers, and
Mm.
that's pretty. They even have their own city guide in Japanese, and they walk into places with their guide. For example, to Casa Aurora with the scallop, just showing the picture of the scallop, like this is.
I bet they love that at Casa Urola, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't know this. There is like a, it's not the official name, but people call it the Food Disneyland. It's a theme park in Japan where they have replicas of restaurants from all over the world, and they have a replica of Casa Aurora.
No,
So
really?
yeah, so they're coming to the original place.
Crazy.
That's so Japanese, you know.
That's that's super Japanese. But like, I think like what's interesting is like obviously the Basque Country is a very rich region in Spain, so it's very rich in resources and etc. You know, and apart from the fact that like it's a shame that people don't see the value in food because it's a huge tourism draw, right? It brings a lot of money to the country also. You know, the people can hate on tourists as much as they want, but it brings a lot of capital and like keeps the standard of life up. But like, what's interesting is kind of like we're now being here in the Basque Country and wanting to look at real like high level Basque cooking and what that means. It's sort of like what makes the cuisine so interesting to people and so fascinating. Because I know when I first came to the Basque Country, I didn't really know what to expect. I came here for Mugaritz to work specifically at Mugaritz, and being here in the Basque Country for that year really changed my trajectory as a chef. I was like heading one way, and then I came here and I went to asadores and sidrerias and stuff like that, and it really changed where I was heading.
For me, like two things that made me fell in love with the city back then when I also went to Mugaritz. I was 19 years old, um, and it was both cider houses and pincho bars.
Mm.
You know, like this pincho bar crawling. I was like, "What? This is fucking Disneyland." You know, like
Wow.
this is food Disneyland. And a cider house also such an amazing experience, such a
Absolutely.
magical thing. I mean, you have like way more knowledge about the Basque Country now. You've lived here a couple of times, and you've come for visit and everything. So, what is for you Basque cooking about? Like, what are the key features of it?
Mm. For me, it's like super super focused on the produce, on the product, with like minimal kind of like intervention. It's like very puristic, and often with the element is very seasonal, right? And often with the element of the charcoal and fire grill, like very subtly. And it has this like it gives it this like almost primal sort of like mystical feel to it. Like take like so for example, you have like guisantes lagrima, the like teardrop peas. It's like super seasonal, super high quality product cooked over charcoal. Gives it like this like little
They're now in season, by the way.
yeah.
We're going to get those probably on Sunday.
I hope so, man. They're fucking insane. Like it's absolutely incredible. Because the Basque Country is like we were talking about it yesterday. It's like Garden of Eden almost. It's like a fucking paradise. Like
Mm.
the stuff they have here, the mixture of like sea and land is unparalleled. And then this approach of kind of like very minimal cooking, preserving the essence, the natural essence, it's like the holy trinity of cooking.
The story of how it developed, as I understand it, I need to research more and learn more. But things that I know, if I go back the earliest I can, I once met a guy. He told me, "Oh, my grandfather was a food critic," and I said, from the new Basque cuisine generation," and he was like, "No, earlier," and I was like, "Oh, really?" So this guy sent me pictures of one of the food guides that his grandfather wrote, and this was so interesting because there were like like a food guide where you can eat this there and that over there from the 60s,
Mm.
and there were things like there's a very good mushroom soup at the drugstore in Old Town. So there was already a culture of going around from one place to another and knowing that there is someone who does something really good over there. So there was already like a very, very strong food culture. We already talked about Nouvelle Cuisine in the Nouvelle Cuisine episode. Back then, also you had this culture in bars, but if you went to like a white tablecloth restaurant, like a proper high-end fine dining restaurant, it was 100% French. All of the restaurants were French here, with French fancy names and this kind of things. So what happened after Franco died in the mid 70s, there was this renaissance of it was okay to feel Basque again. It was okay to feel Catalan again. This was a period known in the arts as the destape, which means taking the lid out. So in the cinema Almodovar,
Yeah.
all of these kind of things happened. There was like this zeitgeist, and in that context, a group of 14 chefs, even though that Anthony Bourdain in his episode, he calls them the 12 original apostles. There were 14, not 12, but it's cooler to call them the 12 apostles.
We'll forgive him for
And they wrote a manifesto that inspired the New Nordic Manifesto and many other things. But this was way too early. This was like mid 70s, and they were determining to basically the manifesto said, let's not be French, let's be Basque and celebrate, or like that mushroom soup from the drugstore, let's transform it into something that we can put into an amazing high-end restaurant and the proper setting for it. Which was the main difference between the history that happened here and what happened in Copenhagen. In Copenhagen, they had sausages and potatoes. That's what they had. So that they couldn't. It was very difficult to elevate that. So they just opened the canvas to a wine canvas and just explore out of scratch and create like a new cuisine out of scratch. In this case, it was creating a new cuisine out of grandmothers and tradition, right? And that's amazing because many of these high-end restaurants, they develop dishes that became standards that now you see also in Pintxos bars that people cook at home, and the wheel goes on and on and on. Like people here, they cook Basque cooking at home. They go to Basque restaurants, and they also have this gastronomic societies, these supper clubs where they go there and cook Basque food. Like
which is incredible.
yeah, it's very, very different from, let's say, for example, America, the United States, for example. They're becoming a chef means pretty much understanding external traditions. Like, let's learn how the French or the Italians or the Spanish or the Japanese cook.
Yeah.
While here, people are pretty much, of course, they learn about everything, but it's pretty much alive this statement of think global, act local.
Yeah, for sure. Like it makes absolute sense, right? You have this. It's really, really cool. It's such a brave sort of like movement, also, of kind of like reconquering and reabsorbing your own culture that was like for such a long time forbidden and pushed away from you, And I mean, if you look at that, and you look at it now, where Basque is being taught in school, and stuff like that, it's crazy what a huge push over like what 2-3 generations they've done, and how what an effect that had.
Okay, nice that you bring that up, but because I'm sure a lot of our people in the audience don't even know about what the Basque country is. Like first of all, Basque language is the oldest spoken language in Europe. It predates Latin. Like
Which is insane.
that means that logically it has no Latin roots, but no trackable roots from any other language. No Indo-European, Germanic, whatever you name it, it's not that. So there is no conclusive theory about where it originated. But it's believed to have originated somewhere between 5 and 15,000 years ago. So that means Basque people predate Romans. They have been here for a while, and that's also probably the reason. So that it's a culture of, I would say, shepherds and sailors, right?
Yeah.
And so like that's like the melting pot that create the cuisine that exists here. No, but the interesting thing is, and you can really see the aftermath. There is also a French part. So as I said, Basque predate the Romans, so they've been here in the region, and then something called Spain was created, and something called France was created, and the Basque country stayed in the middle. So that means that there is like a part of the Basque country, what is known as Euskal Herria, which is the Basque territory that is part of France. And if you go there, they speak Basque with French accent.
Yeah.
And there are very clear similarities in the architecture and the type fonts and a lot of things. But the food is very different, and I'm pretty sure that the food became very different after, or more different than it already was after the new Basque cuisine,
Mm.
where they said like, let's use olive oil instead of butter. Instead of looking how to do a blah 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 la meunière, let's look in other regions of Spain how to, I don't know, incorporate like a gazpacho, or even like the tomato salad. That is something that has become a standard in summer. Is that like one of the iconic things that you will find in San Sebastian? That's something relatively modern.
Mm.
You know, like it's something that like in the 80s you would only find tomato cooked into sauces in the dishes around here. Not now. This is something that was incorporated probably from the south of Spain, or from Spaniards that came here and opened the restaurants. There's an article about this stuck to the wall at Bar Nestor,
Mhm.
where he says raw tomatoes, that was something from the Spaniards. Because that's also something. People here, they don't feel Spanish, they feel
No.
Basque.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
It is a big difference. I mean, like from people to the outside, it's easy to kind of like put it all in one thing. But if you're in Spain, there's a very noticeable difference between Basque people and Spanish people. Not just in the attitude, but just in the entire culture, in the physical appearance, like in everything. It's just it's a different type of people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to go to a lot of reference places that showcase this exact cooking in different styles. We're gonna go to some traditional places that are like at the very, very top of like the culinary level here, and to a couple of places that are sort of like a modern interpretation of that cooking. So it should be really interesting.
Yeah, but I think it's transversal to all of them. The features that you mentioned, they're very produce driven. There's grill, I think, in all of them. Yeah, we're going to especially learn about how the fish grilling culture developed around here, because I think you get the best grilled fish in the world in the Basque country.
Yeah.
And the way it's done is something that developed. Well, let's ask tomorrow to Mikel. As far as I know, there are two schools. One is a school of Orio, which is where we're going, and the other is a school of Getaria, which is the next village.
Mm.
And the main difference is that in Orio they would throw the fish directly to the grill,
Mm-hmm.
and in Orio they would put it in the las besugueras, in these cages where you put the fish inside so you can flip it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. And I actually talked to Aitor Arregui from Elcano, and he told me he did a research to try to discover when these cages originated, and there was no conclusion. They couldn't find any reference. They don't know who or where it started. Yeah.
Because I mean, those cages also, they're so iconic nowadays. Like so many elements of the Basque cooking have become worldwide culture. The grilling cages, they're used everywhere now, even in Japan. Yesterday, I saw a video of one of my old head chefs who's opened a restaurant in LA, and he was like showing the grill cages like in his restaurant in LA, to like the cheesecake, the Basque cheesecake, that's now a worldwide sensation. And it's so cool how this like it is something about this cuisine that's just it's like it's almost like it's like the perfect type of cooking, right? And then elements just become extremely popular and get adapted worldwide.
You go to Barcelona and you will see grilled fish a la Donostiarra,
Yeah.
Donostia style. Donostia is the Basque word for San Sebastian.
Mm.
So right now we're going to Casa Cámara, which is this place where they have like a huge lobster cage in the middle of the dining room, where they literally get lobsters directly fresh from the sea to your table.
Mm. Like a medieval torture device.
Exactly. This
Mm.
restaurant is like 140 years old.
That's crazy.
1884.
There's pictures of that lobster cage like from like ages ago.
Yeah, because it used to be like a place where people would go to buy lobster before it became a restaurant.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. Make the restaurant around the cage where you get
Yeah.
the lobster. Yeah.
Then we're going to Muca, which is like a modern Basque grill place from Juan Vargas, who you work with at
Yes.
Medallions. He at some point he was head chef at Mugaritz. When I went for dinner in 2016, he was.
Yeah, he was there for a long time. He was like the remnants of what I thought was like the strongest team in Mugaritz. He's very Spanish in his approach, with a very deep appreciation for the Basque, and he's like super minimalist, produce focus. It's super interesting, very interesting, very authentically niche.
I've been to Muga before. The interesting thing about it is that they embrace the Basque grill culture, but they're very, very, very vegetable driven, which is very interesting for a grill place.
You know, he worked at Michel Bras.
Juan Vargas.
For a short time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and Mugaritz is also very vegetable driven.
Yes.
Or at least it used to be. Now it became like more this techno-emotional kind of approach. That's today. Tomorrow we're going to Bodegon Juan Mari, which is a place where Basque chefs go when they want to eat grilled fish. It's a place to go. It's also an historical place. They developed many of the ways that the grill styles. That's for lunch. For dinner, we're going to go to Asador Bedua, which is like 3 villages further to the west. Again, very traditional and very vegetable driven for a grill place. Asador, as you know, means grill house. That will be Saturday, Sunday. We're going to visit Jade Gros in La Rioja.
Nice.
Again, another ex head chef at Mugaritz. She started producing her own wines in La Rioja, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know where we're going for lunch. I know she booked something, and for dinner we come back to San Sebastián and we go to Narru again, modern Basque, ex Mugaritz chefs. Lots of respect for grilling, vegetable driven. I don't know where we're going to have the guisantes de lágrimas, the baby peas. I think that could be a good place for it.
Probably.
Maybe Asador Bedua could be a good place for it as well. Maybe Muka as well. Maybe all of them.
Maybe all of them, yeah.
No, let's avoid repeating. Let's try to do it as diverse as possible.
100%, yeah. Yeah, because like I mean, there's things to be had in each place.
I mean, you can have steak in all of the places I mentioned.
You can if you want to. We should have a steak at least once.
Yeah,
at least once.
At least once. I agree.
Yeah.
That's it for this week's episode of Potluck Food Talks. If you like what we're doing, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok as Potluck Food Talks. The show airs every Monday,